On Thursday, Northwest Athletics held a press conference to introduce the newest member of Bearcat Nation in basketball head coach Matt Keeley. It was a joyous day as not only athletic director Andy Peterson, but University President Lance Tatum officially handed the keys over to Keeley as the program transitions to his leadership. The morning was highlighted by passion as Peterson became emotional when thinking about the legacy of not only recently departed coach Ben McCollum, but all-time winningest head coach Steve Tapmeyer. It was an emotional and passionate morning as Keeley described himself as both a people person and a family man, but a storyteller who loves to connect. The phrase of the afternoon was "our kind of guy," which is further highlighted by the newest coach. The phrase comes from the fact that Keeley continually recruited players similar to Peterson and McCollum. Along with coverage of the press conference, our host Jason Holland sat down with Coach Keeley to find out what to expect from the newest member of the Bearcat family.
Welcome back to this special edition of Bearcat Update. Once again, I'm your host, Jason Holland, and it's going to be a little bit of a different setup this week as I'm getting the opportunity to sit down with the new men's basketball coach, Coach Keeley. We're going to ask him a few questions and kind of get to know who he is as a coach as well as a person and give y'all a more in-depth look into what to expect this upcoming year and years to come. We're going to go ahead and start off a question that I kind of asked a little bit during the press conference, but I want to give you a more specific look into your answer. Is we kind of talked about enthusiasm as a quality that sets you apart, but you also talked about pillars as well. If I were to ask, what are 3 qualities that you believe set you apart as a head coach, not only whenever you were interviewing for the process, but now joining the ranks of the MIAA, what are 3 qualities you believe set you apart in that aspect?
Yeah, I think the first would maybe be just as a communicator and a storyteller. You know, I really like people. It's really fun for me to go into different people's homes and recruit, get to know them as the family, what makes them tick, what's their background. You know, we step in the locker room and we got guys from everywhere, you know, and backgrounds and values and things that they do, and then putting that group together. And a lot of times that's a main thing through communication. The other one you mentioned was enthusiasm. You know, I'm thankful for each day, you know, and there's days that are better than others. There's no doubt, and that's real life. But just the opportunity to attack each day and be reminded of that each morning when I wake up that, hey, I'm still here, I'm still breathing, and I've been given an opportunity either as a dad or as a husband or as a coach or, you know, just any of the different hats that I get to wear and to just embrace those fully, you know, and there's times that those will cross over, you know, and it's really cool that my job allows me to be a cool dad. You know, maybe one of my kids comes in the locker room or something like that for a positive. There's days that it works the other way around, you know, where, man, we get beat and I walk through the front door and kids are happy to see me and you know, I try to work really hard so that they don't know, you know, if we've won or lost, you know, in that way with it. So those are a couple that jump out that are probably the most important.
Awesome. I love that you're a family man, especially coming from a small community. Being able to embrace that side of things is a big deal, especially for a lot of the locals as well as a lot of the students that come here, come from small towns. So a lot of us can relate to that, and we really appreciate that. Elaborating a little more on, or bouncing off of, talking about the recruiting aspect and going into people's homes. Maryville is a smaller community, especially if you look at different Division II schools. It's a smaller town, it's a smaller school, and recruiting can sometimes be a challenge whenever it comes to that. And I was curious how you plan on overcoming that potential barrier, or even if you see it as a barrier at all.
Yeah. Well, I think if you can get them to visit campus, you know, a lot of those fears go away. One, because, you know, the campus is kind of its own little community inside of Maryville, and it's not small. You know, the campus is an awesome campus, whether it's facilities or just different opportunities that people can do, you know, and majors and just all the things that you go into it. So getting them to visit in person is a great thing. Being a part of a community like Maryville is also great because the people care. You know, like a Saturday in the fall is going to have, you know, that stadium for football games full. You know, and the same thing in the winter, you know, when the men's and women's teams are playing basketball or volleyball or whatever it is, they come out and support. So it's very intentional, the community. It's very authentic, it's real, it's the thing that's going on in town. And those things quickly become things that you can use as to your advantage.
Now, it was talked about a lot, Coach McCollum going on to Coach for Drake, accept the position there. A lot of people see it as big shoes to fill, but I was curious if you've had a chance to talk to Coach McCollum, kind of pick his brain a little bit, or if he had any advice for you coming in.
Yeah, well, it is for sure big shoes to fill. That's a real thing, and even chuckled the first day of walking into the office and sitting in his chair. That's Coach McCollum's chair for the last 15 years, or whatever it is, and trying to feel like, man, is it okay for me to sit in Coach's chair and all that stuff? But no, he had great advice. We've been able to visit some and just encouraged me the same way when, he was taking over following a guy that was on a roll with Coach Tapmeyer and set the foundation and ultimately embrace all the great things that are Northwest and then be you, and that's just such great advice. It's so simple, it's so wise. We all know it. But it's such a good reminder. I also mentioned in the press conference of the goals and the standard to be greatness, but it's not trying to be something that has never been. With all the things that they've accomplished and there's win streaks and there's national championships and conference championships, and I think there's like 28 trophies sitting in my office right now just from the Coach McCollum era. That can be daunting and overwhelming, but just to be comfortable in who I am and confident in who this place is, and then attacking it like you would anything, one step at a time, and so 1% better, and it's so many coaching cliches there in that answer, but a lot of times those things are based in truth and certainly things I'm going to lean on.
Yeah, they're cliches for a reason. That's what every great coach has built their building blocks on. So I'm sure that advice, you're going to take it in stride coming forward, and we're really looking forward to see what you do with that. Now, coming into this program that you talked about a little bit, and also has had a lot of success in the past, but you've also had a lot of success so far as a head coach, and I was curious do you expect your coaching style to change at all, or do you expect it to stay the same, or even if it's little changes, how do you expect to evolve as a coach as you come into this position?
I would think it would change, not maybe out of necessity, but even just looking back at how I coached 15 years ago versus how I coached 10 years ago versus how I coached 5 years ago. So there's certainly some absolutes that go into things, but depending on what the group needs at different times. There's sometimes the group needs addressed as a group. There's sometimes they need addressed individually. There's times they need a high five, and there's times they need a kick in the butt. And just I think that's evolved a little bit just through the way kids work these days. And a lot of times people see that as a negative, like, oh, kids these days, they're not as tough. And I really don't see it that way. I just see it as hey, it's new. It's the way it is, and so holding firm to things that, like I mentioned, are absolutes, but also being able to adapt to things that are coming, whether that's a different style of play, that Steph Curry has brought into the game that was different a few years ago, whatever it is, that's the way that we'll try to approach it.
Coming into your transition here as a Bearcat and to Bearcat Nation, what do you believe will be some of your markers of success as well as markers of leadership coming into this building and not winning the locker room over, but building that relationship with the players?
You definitely want to win the locker room over. Any player wants to feel like their coach has their back. Any coach wants to feel like your player has their back, and that certainly doesn't happen overnight. That's not a, hey, I'm here, this is the expectation. That takes time, with all that stuff. To define success, even just thinking through my cell phone, the 10 favorites in my cell phone, my dad, my wife, my son, my college coach, 2 guys that used to play for me, 2 guys that were teammates of mine, and I'm going to officiate a wedding of a former assistant, this summer. Going to go and participate in a wedding, and just getting the text messages of, hey, coach, getting married. Hey, coach, had a new little girl or little boy. Hey, coach, can I use you as a reference for a job? all things that have happened in the last week. And winning helps bind all those things together. You know, a locker room that wins together and gets to earn victory makes it easier to build those relationships. So it's an important part of it. You know, it's not an ignoring of it. And as a competitive dude, you know, my days go better, the relationships go better when we win, but it's not the end all be all. You know, it's a thing that helps us be able to build the relationships, to get the support, to get the belief from the group of guys that, you know, goes well beyond their time even here they're always Bearcats, but beyond their time as Bearcats on campus.
Finally, I know it's early, you just had your opening press conference, but what can fans expect coming forward for this first season as your tenure as the coach?
Yeah, roster will determine that a little bit, but I think very similar to some things that you've seen in the past, a group that really wants to guard and get after it and compete. I think that becomes very evident on the defensive end. A group that plays with great pace and excitement on the offensive end. The best teams that we have offensively are good decision makers that are selfless, that share the basketball. And so those are things that have been ingrained in this program. You know, sometimes you know, it takes maybe the whole shot clock, where we're going to try to do those same things in a shorter version of the shot clock, but the goal and the result is the same that we're looking for.